Beautiful souls. When it comes to Southern soul food cooking, it's not a proper Southern holiday feast without a Black folks cornbread dressing recipe.
Mmm.
Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today for another episode of the Soul Food Pod. Remember, you can find the link to today's recipe in this episode's description or on thesoulfoodpot.com. Now, today we're talking all about cornbread dressing, and there's a lot to unpack to make this favorite homemade Southern side dish specialty. So let's not wait another minute. We have an incredible listen to the recipe episode baked for you today. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Soul Food Pod, the first podcast dedicated to the history and culture around Southern soul food. I'm your host, Shonda Nicole, your go-to recipe creator for modern soul food cuisine, making life easier and more soulful, one recipe at a time. This season, I'm bringing you into my kitchen to listen to the recipe as I prepare iconic African American dishes, unveiling the secret ingredients and step-by-step instructions. You'll learn soul food culture, history, proper seasoning techniques, how to speed up traditional Southern soul food recipes, and how I efficiently use modern kitchen appliances to make your favorite traditional dishes. I'll teach you how iconic African American recipes are now easy enough for anyone to make and everyone to love. What is a Black folks cornbread dressing recipe? This Southern staple is a fluffy mix of cornbread, fresh herbs, and veggies cooked in plenty of butter, broth, and egg, mixed together to create a wonderfully moist and crunchy side dish that's expected to be on the table for a soul food Thanksgiving menu, Christmas dinner, or a New Year's feast. The oven baked fresh cornbread is full of flavor and so easy to prepare. This Southern stuffing recipe will deliver a hearty and satisfying taste with just the right amount of crunchiness you crave from the bread. In addition to being an excellent recipe for the holidays, this is a fantastic side dish for any occasion. You see, cornbread stuffing is also a great way to use up any leftover cornbread you might have just lying around. Also, making homemade cornbread dressing is a great way to create warm, nostalgic memories when cooking for the holidays. The first step is to make a batch of cornbread, and you can prepare cornbread using many ingredients that are probably already in your kitchen cabinet. Now, how do you make a Black folks cornbread dressing? People also ask, what's the easiest way to make cornbread dressing? This old-fashioned Southern cornbread dressing recipe is as simple as sauteing the herbs and broth mixture and letting it cool. Then mix the cornbread with the herbs mixture. That includes butter, celery, onion, thyme, rosemary, sage, parsley, egg, and broth. Then bake until golden brown. Homemade cornbread or cornbread mix? A lot of people ask this. Can you use Jiffy cornbread? The answer is yes. You can go for a cornbread mix if you're short on time, and you won't even have to worry about any compromise to the Southern soul food flavors your family has come to expect. If you prefer making cornbread from scratch, check out my homemade cornbread recipe on thesoulfoodpot.com. What size baking dish do you need for the cornbread? An 8-inch medium-sized skillet works best. Have you ever tried making your own Southern cornbread dressing? This soul food Thanksgiving dressing recipe is easy to make and will help you prepare your taste buds for a Thanksgiving dinner. Just bake the bread, then saute and mix all the ingredients to create the perfect holiday side dish. You'll be more than satisfied with the results. It's that simple. And a pro tip, a common question when making cornbread dressing is, why is my cornbread dressing mushy? When combining the ingredients with the cubed cornbread, try to fold in the ingredients instead of stirring. You want to avoid overworking the cornbread so it doesn't break down, yielding a dressing with a mushy texture. You can bake this dish and eat it separately or stuff it inside the turkey for a traditional Thanksgiving stuffing meal. So let's get cooking.
Woohoo!
All right, here's the kitchen equipment that you'll need for a Black folks cornbread dressing: an 8-inch cast iron skillet, an 8-inch baking dish, the Instant Pot pressure cooker, optional, but you know that's my fave, And of course, I'm always using my Instant Pot Omni Plus oven. It just makes things faster to bake in the oven. Now, the ingredients for the cornbread, let's go the easy route. Again, you can find the cornbread from scratch recipe on the soulfoodpot.com. But for the sake of this conversation, we're pulling out our 8.5 ounce box of Jiffy Corn Muffin Mix. Then you'll add a fourth a cup of granulated sugar. You can omit that if you prefer your cornbread not sweet, but that fourth of a cup doesn't make it too sweet. You'll need 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 3 ounces of whipped cream cheese, and 4 ounces of heavy whipping cream. Now, here are the instructions for the cornbread. First, preheat the oven to bake at 350 degrees. Place the 4 tablespoons of butter in an 8-inch skillet and melt in the oven for approximately 5 minutes. While the butter is melting, combine the Jiffy cornbread mix, sugar, cream cheese, and heavy cream in a medium-sized mixing bowl. Pour the melted butter from the skillet into the mixing bowl and mix all the ingredients. Pour the cornbread mixture then into the skillet. Bake at 350 degrees in the conventional oven for 25 to 30 minutes. And if you use the Instant Pot Omni Plus oven like myself, bake for 23 to 25 minutes. Saves you a little time. When the baking time is finished, allow the cornbread to cool for approximately 10 minutes, and then cut the bread lengthwise and then across into 1-inch bread cubes and set them aside. Now, here's what you'll need ingredients-wise for the cornbread dressing. 1/4 cup of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, 1 cup of yellow onion diced, 1 cup of celery diced, 1 tablespoon of thyme, fresh or dried, 1 tablespoon of rosemary, fresh or dry also works here, 1 teaspoon of sage ground, 1/4 cup of parsley finely chopped, half a cup of chicken stock or chicken broth, or you can use vegetable broth to make this a vegetarian dish, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 large egg. Now, here are the instructions for the cornbread dressing. You want to grease an 8-inch or similar sized baking dish and transfer the set aside cornbread cubes to the pre-greased dish and then set aside the cornbread cubes. Remove the lid from the Instant Pot and turn on the saute setting for 8 minutes. With the lid off, melt the 1/4 cup of butter. Then add the chopped onion, celery, thyme, rosemary, and sage. Stir to coat the vegetables in the herbs and melted butter, and then saute until they soften and are slightly brown. Add the chicken stock, salt, and pepper to the inner pot, and then simmer and stir to combine. Remove the herb mixture from the heat and set it aside. You want to allow the mixture to cool to the touch so that it can be mixed with the egg. And you don't want the egg to cook from the residual heat and scramble. No scrambled eggs for this recipe. Now, while the herbs are cooling off, beat the egg with the parsley in a medium-sized bowl. Pour the egg and parsley mixture over the cubed cornbread in the set-aside baking dish and gently fold in the mixture evenly with the bread cubes. Then pour the cooled herb mixture into the cornbread and egg mixture, evenly distributing with your pour. Cut the 1 tablespoon of butter into small pats and place them all around on top of the dressing. Then cover the baking dish with foil and bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 35 minutes in the conventional oven. Bake for 30 minutes if you're using the Omni Plus oven. Uncover and then bake until golden brown, 10 to 15 more minutes in the conventional oven or 10 minutes in the Omni Plus oven. Then you're ready to serve this Black Folks cornbread dressing recipe warm and enjoy. Optionally, add gravy on top.
Yes.
Now, what do you eat with cornbread stuffing? There are many Southern soul food Thanksgiving dishes that you'll always find on the table to pair with the Southern cornbread dressing recipe. Check out the soulfoodpot.com's list of favorite African American Thanksgiving side dishes, or a roundup of the best soul food sides. Do cornbread stuffing and cornbread dressing differ in any way? This is always asked. All right, let's break this down. Stuffing and dressing. So stuffing and dressing are terms for a dish made with bread, usually cornbread in the Southern United States. What do Southerners call dressing? Southerners refer to American stuffing served on the side outside the bird as dressing. So what is stuffing then? Well, stuffing is baked inside the bird during the cooking process, while dressing is baked in a dish outside the bird's body to serve as the side. Cornbread stuffing is a dish that consists of a warm, moist mixture of cornbread, vegetables, and herbs that is placed inside the turkey before roasting it.
Wow.
So now the question, what is dressing? So, on the other hand, Southern cornbread dressing is typically made with crumbled cornbread mixed with egg, herbs, and veggies, cooked in butter, and then baked in a casserole dish. That sounds so good. Okay. So, cornbread dressing variations. A cornbread stuffing recipe is a staple for many Southern soul food holiday meals. I've shared some of my favorite, easy to make cornbread stuffing recipes that will liven up any dinner table this holiday season. And I want to remind you that you can always make Southern cornbread dressing your own. For example, some African American households add smoked sausage, liver, chicken, diced bell pepper, and even chopped boiled eggs to this recipe. So, what if you want to add oysters? For example, I've had the same recipe with the addition of cooked oysters. In fact, you can find that recipe on the soulfoodpot.com. You'd add the oysters during the step where you're combining the cornbread and the herb mixture. Then you call this recipe oyster dressing. Old fashioned oyster dressing is one of my favorite Southern recipes. Now, you can also make this recipe with the addition of chicken or chicken gizzards, also can be found on the soulfoodpot.com. Now, people always ask, so we're going to cover this again, is it okay to use Jiffy Corn Muffin Mix? This year, you can make your homemade cornbread dressing with a bit of help from my favorite mix, mine being Jiffy Corn Muffin Mix. Or you can make it all on your own, prepared from scratch. Again, that recipe is on the soulfoodpot.com. Can this be made in individual muffins or in a muffin pan? A cornbread dressing made with a muffin pan? Yes, it's possible. Does your family include picky eaters? Then I say problem solved, because the best part about making this dish in individual muffins instead of a large pan is that you can customize the toppings for each person. So clever. Now, what temperature is the oven for the dressing? If you use a conventional oven, cover with foil and preheat to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake for 35 minutes, then cover and continue baking until golden brown, another 10 to 15 minutes. So you're going to bake covered and then again uncovered for this recipe. Should you cover dressing when baking? Always ask, so we're talking about it again. Cover with foil and bake for 30 to 35 minutes. Then remove the foil and bake until golden for additional 10 to 15 minutes. Now, can dressing be made ahead of time? People often ask if they can make this recipe the night before and bake it the next day, especially for Thanksgiving or Christmas, because it's always hectic during the holidays. And the answer is yes. It's okay to assemble the cornbread dressing ahead of time, cover the dish with foil, and then store it in the refrigerator for up to 8 hours before baking. Now, can you freeze this cornbread dressing recipe? To freeze your cornbread dressing before cooking, ensure the dish has completely cooled. Then easily transfer it into a freezer-safe container or bag, tightly seal it, my favorite, label it with the date and contents so you know what it is, and place it in the freezer for up to 90 days. Now, here, beautiful souls, are your frequently asked questions about this Black folks cornbread dressing recipe. What size cast iron skillet do you recommend for the cornbread? I recommend an 8-inch baking dish or cast iron skillet, which works best for baking the cornbread for this Southern dressing recipe. Now, if you're using a cornbread mix, you ask, how many boxes do you use? One Jiffy cornbread mix is all you need, 8.5 ounces, which is just a little more than a cup. How much cornbread should you use in terms of cups? The ingredients added to this recipe will comfortably fill an 8-inch skillet, about 2 to 2.5 cups, without overflowing when baking. Now, people ask, can you use Pepperidge Farm cornbread classic stuffing in the bag? Homemade cornbread stuffing or cornbread stuffing mix, what to do? Well, yes, you could use a stuffing mix. However, you'll compromise the homemade Southern soul food flavoring, which is important and why we do this. The taste will not be like baking fresh cornbread to make this cornbread dressing recipe. So just simply follow these easy step-by-step instructions and you will have nostalgic memories for your Sunday soul food dinner or your next soul food holiday. Now, you also asked, do you have to soften the onion and celery? The onion and celery will soften when cooked in the saute mixture when making the herb and vegetable mix. So that's already taken care of for you. And how wet should the dressing be before baking? People often ask how you keep cornbread dressing from being watery or gummy. And the famous question is, why is your cornbread dressing gummy? So before it's baked, the dressing should be moist, not watery or gummy. If your stuffing is too wet, just add a few slices of cubed honey wheat bread. Honey wheat's my favorite. I think it goes well with cornbread, but it could be any bread. Add a few slices of cubed bread to soak up the extra liquid. So don't fret. That's an easy way to fix watery stuffing before you cook it. Now, how do you fix dry stuffing? So, on the other hand, think your dressing is overcooked? Again, no worries. You can fix dry stuffing with a few tablespoons of melted butter, chicken stock, or broth. Remember, try not to overwork the stuffing when adding the ingredients and when mixing. You don't want to break down the cornbread, which will cause the dressing to have that mushy texture. And how do you make this dish vegetarian? Great question. To make this dish vegetarian, use vegetable broth instead of chicken broth. It's so easy. Now, beautiful souls, what do you think of this Southern soul food recipe? I'll leave it'll let me say that again. It'll leave everyone happy at the dinner table. The step-by-step instructions make it super easy to make and a big win, especially during the busy holiday season. Does your family have a dressing or stuffing recipe that is passed down from one generation table to the next? Let me know. And until next time, beautiful souls, remember that food for the body is not enough. There must be food for the soul.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Soul Food Pod. Did you enjoy today's conversation and recipe? If you want more easy to make soul food recipes and Southern food for the soul, then follow me for ideas that make your life easier plus more soulful. Subscribe here to the Soul Food Pod and subscribe to my food blog, thesoulfoodpot.com. On the Instagrams, follow me at Shonda Nicole. Have you had today's recipe? Would you make it? Comment below and let me know. And make sure you rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe for all the soul food.